Hire a remote .NET developer, Essential SMB Guide. Hi there. Today we'll talk about Hire a remote .NET developer, Essential SMB Guide. We'll cover everything you need to know about Hire remote .NET developer for SMB. So, let's get started. Why SMBs are turning to remote .NET development in 2026. The cost difference alone explains a lot. Local .NET developers in the US command annual salaries between $110,000 and $160,000 according to Stack Overflow's 2024 developer survey. For most small businesses, that figure represents a significant portion of total payroll before you add benefits, payroll taxes, and office overhead. Remote developers in Eastern Europe, Latin America, or Southeast Asia offer comparable technical skills at rates typically 40 to 70% lower. That gap changes what you can actually build. When your development budget stretches further, you can afford to build the right product rather than a stripped-down version of it. There's a talent concentration argument too. .NET developers who specialize in Azure, Power Platform, or Microsoft Dynamics 365 are clustered in specific markets. If you're building on the Microsoft stack, remote hiring gives you access to specialists who may simply not exist in your local area. If you're evaluating your cloud infrastructure alongside your hiring decision, how Azure Cloud empowers SMBs is a useful starting point for understanding what services your development team will be building on. What SMBs need to know before hiring remote .NET developers. Before you post a job description or reach out to a development agency, get clear on a few fundamentals first. Define your project scope before anything else. Vague requirements lead to budget overruns and frustration on both sides. Know what you're building, what integrations you need, and what done looks like before any money changes hands. Understand the .NET ecosystem. .NET is a broad platform. A developer who specializes in .NET MAUI for cross-platform desktop apps is different from one who focuses on ASP.NET Core APIs or Azure Functions. If you're building a fintech app with regulatory workflow requirements, you need someone who understands compliance-adjacent architecture, not just someone who can write C# code. Our post on understanding the role of a .NET Core development company in 2026 breaks down what these specializations mean in practice. Know what remote means for your working relationship. Some SMBs want a developer who attends daily stand-ups. Others prefer async communication with weekly check-ins. Be honest about what you need before you advertise, because the developer you hire will structure their availability accordingly. Clarify IP and data requirements early. If you handle customer financial data, personal information, or proprietary business logic, you need to know your compliance obligations before you write a single contract clause. These requirements shape everything from where your developer can be located to what cloud regions your Azure resources must sit in. Freelancer versus dedicated development team, which is right for your SMB? The short answer, it depends on whether your project is a one-time build or an ongoing product. Freelancers work well for discrete, well-defined projects. A specific API integration, a Power BI dashboard, or a single microservice migration are good freelance fits. You pay for deliverables, the engagement ends, and you move on. Dedicated developers or development teams are better when you're building something that will grow and change. If you're creating a customer-facing SaaS product, a fintech application with evolving compliance requirements, or a platform that needs regular maintenance and feature additions, a dedicated developer becomes a long-term technical partner. They learn your codebase, your business logic, and your standards, and that knowledge compounds over time. Factor freelancer dedicated developer project type fixed scope ongoing or revolving cost model per project or hourly monthly retainer availability variable committed hours knowledge retention limited high accountability moderate high ramp up time per engagement one time for SMBs outsourcing development for the first time. A dedicated developer model tends to reduce risk. You're not starting from scratch every time you need something built. If you're still weighing the full outsourcing question, Outsourcing App Development for Startups in 2026 covers the range of engagement models worth understanding. How to vet a remote developer before signing a contract. Vetting is where most SMBs make mistakes when they decide to hire a remote .NET developer. The process needs to be more structured than a casual interview. Review actual code, not just a portfolio. Ask for GitHub links, code samples, or a take-home technical task. A portfolio page with company logos is not technical evidence. Look at how they structure their projects, handle errors, and approach testing. Check for relevant domain experience. If you're building a banking compliance workflow, ask specifically about prior work in regulated industries. If you're building an Azure-hosted application, ask how they've handled Azure Resource Groups, secrets management with Key Vault, or Azure DevOps pipelines. Generic .NET experience doesn't automatically transfer to specialized domains. Run a paid trial engagement. A 2 to 4 week paid trial on a small, real task tells you more than any interview. You'll see how they communicate, whether they ask the right clarifying questions early, and whether their code meets your standards. Check references properly. Most people send a quick email with soft questions. Ask instead, what would this developer struggle with, and would you hire them again for a complex, high-stakes project? The second question tends to surface an honest answer. Verify time zone overlap. At least 3 to 4 hours of working hour overlap makes real-time collaboration viable. Less than that, and you're working almost entirely asynchronously, which requires strong written communication skills on their part. Contract clauses every SMB must include when hiring remote developers. A weak contract is one of the most common ways SMBs lose money in outsourcing engagements. These clauses are non-negotiable. Intellectual property assignment. Every line of code written for your project must legally transfer to your company upon payment. Without an explicit IP assignment clause, the developer may retain ownership of what they built for you. This is the most commonly missed clause and the most expensive mistake when absent. Confidentiality and NDA. If your developer has access to customer data, business logic, or proprietary processes, a confidentiality agreement is essential. This matters especially in fintech and banking contexts where data handling is subject to regulation. Our post on automating banking compliance on Azure explains why compliance requirements often shape architectural decisions from day one. Data residency and compliance obligations. If you operate under GDPR, HIPAA, or financial regulations, specify where data can be processed and stored. A remote developer working on your Azure infrastructure needs to understand and agree to these constraints in writing. Termination conditions. Define what happens if you need to end the contract early. What is the notice period? What deliverables must be handed over? Who owns incomplete work? Payment milestones. Tie payments to deliverables rather than to time wherever possible. This is especially important for project-based engagements. Non-solicitation. Prevent the developer from approaching your team members or clients for a defined period after the engagement ends. Managing a remote .NET developer across time zones. Getting the hire right is only half the work. How you manage the relationship determines whether the project succeeds. Establish a communication rhythm early. Daily async updates via Slack or Microsoft Teams, weekly video calls, and a shared project board on Azure DevOps or Jira give you visibility without micromanaging. Document everything. Requirements that only exist in someone's head become problems when that person is 4 hours ahead or behind you and unavailable during your core working day. Write specifications clearly and maintain a living document of architectural decisions. Define done explicitly. The feature is complete means different things to different people. Use acceptance criteria for every task. Clear handover criteria remove ambiguity and give both sides a shared reference point. Measure output, not hours. Tracking keystrokes or requiring screen recording software damages the working relationship and reveals little of value. Measure output instead. Does the code work? Is it tested? Does it meet the specification? That's what you're paying for. Invest in onboarding. A solid onboarding process, including access credentials, architecture documentation, coding standards, and a codebase walkthrough, can cut the typical 2 to 4 week ramp-up time considerably. Developers who understand your system early produce better work faster. If your team is building AI-powered workflows on Azure, sharing relevant resources with new hires early makes a real difference. How to build AI agents for SMB automation on Azure is worth passing along to any developer entering your environment. How to hire a remote React Native developer for your SMB app. Many SMBs need mobile app development alongside backend .NET work. If you're building a cross-platform mobile app, hiring a remote React Native developer follows similar principles but has a few distinct considerations. React Native and .NET often work in tandem. React Native handles the mobile frontend while a .NET API serves as the backend layer. Developers who have experience with both, or who have worked on teams using this pairing, integrate faster and communicate more effectively across the stack. Portfolio quality matters more here than credentials. Ask to see apps that are live in the App Store or Google Play. A deployed app demonstrates the full pipeline: development, testing, submission, and any review cycles from platform gatekeepers. A simulator demo is not the same thing as a shipped product. Check for performance awareness. React Native apps can be slow when built carelessly. Ask specifically how candidates have handled list rendering performance, navigation optimization, and offline capabilities. These are the areas where React Native apps most commonly underperform in production. Ask about their testing philosophy. Unit tests, integration tests, and end-to-end tests for mobile are often skipped by junior developers prioritizing speed. A developer who can articulate their testing approach clearly is a stronger hiring signal. According to the GitHub October's 2024 report, TypeScript has continued its rise as one of the fastest-growing languages globally. Since React Native relies heavily on TypeScript, demand for developers with deep TypeScript skills is outpacing supply, and rates reflect that competitive pressure. For SMBs weighing React Native against other mobile frameworks, our breakdown of Ionic app performance, myths versus reality is worth reading as part of your framework evaluation. Cost breakdown: what to budget when you hire remote .NET developers for SMBs. Rates vary significantly by region, seniority, and engagement model. Raise a realistic breakdown based on current market data. Region: junior, mid-level, senior. Eastern Europe $25 to $40 per hour, $40 to $65 per hour, $65 to $95 per hour. Latin America $20 to $35 per hour, $35 to $55 per hour, $55 to $85 per hour. Southeast Asia $15 to $30 per hour, $30 to $50 per hour, $50 to $75 per hour. South Asia $15 to $25 per hour, $25 to $45 per hour, $45 to $70 per hour. React Native developer rates follow similar patterns, typically running 5 to 15% below senior .NET rates in the same region due to higher developer supply. For a dedicated developer on a full-time monthly retainer, mid-level Eastern European rates typically translate to $6,000 to $10,000 per month. An equivalent US-based hire costs $12,000 to $16,000 per month once you account for salary, benefits, and overhead. That gap is what makes remote hiring so financially compelling for SMBs with real product ambitions. Your infrastructure costs are separate from developer costs, and they add up. Azure cost optimization strategies for SMBs is worth reviewing alongside your hiring budget so you have a complete picture of total technical spend before committing to a project scope. Conclusion: the decision to hire a remote .NET developer for your SMB comes down to preparation and process. Remote .NET development done well gives you access to specialized talent, genuine cost advantages, and a technical partner who grows with your business. Done without proper vetting, contracts, or management structure, it leads to delays, budget overruns, and code you don't fully own. Clear project requirements, structured vetting, airtight contracts, and output-focused management are what separate successful remote engagements from expensive ones. Follow those steps, and hiring a dedicated remote .NET developer becomes a real competitive advantage for your SMB rather than a risk. If you're ready to discuss your specific project requirements, our team works with SMBs and fintech companies building on Microsoft Azure and the Power Platform. Reach out to start the conversation.